a lot of backlash for Texas Governor Abbott's decision. California's governor, Democrat Gavin Newsom, called it absolutely reckless. Newsom, of course, has ordered some of the nation's strictest lockdowns. Meanwhile, one health official in Texas is warning people not to change their behavior just yet, saying, quote, despite the impending removal of the state mask mandate, we must continue with our vigilance with masking, distancing, and hand washing. Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General, joins me now. First of all, talk with me about meeting that backlash with the facts that you in Texas are working with.
Yeah, so I mean, whenever you do something related to COVID, you're going to get backlash one way or the other. No one's done this perfectly. No one knew how to do this perfectly. So whatever you do, you always get criticism. But I do think Governor Abbott's moved in the absolute right direction, was putting the decision in the hands of people who need to make the decisions about themselves, about their own lives, letting business owners decide what they want to do. If they want to have restrictions, they can, and then consumers can decide if they want to show up. So I think this was a very good decision, and I think it's a direction that we need to go.
You know, I want to throw this into the mix because it's about the facts. According to the CDC, deaths per 100,000 people in your state, Texas, and Florida are about 140, which is similar to the states with some of the strictest lockdowns in the nation. California, 132 deaths per 100,000. New York, 163. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, those are just statistics. They're facts about what is actually happening. And so I think what that says is this is a pandemic that was going to spread one way or the other. There's certainly things we can do to protect ourselves, but we can't protect everyone all the time. And it is going to spread to some degree. So as the numbers show, it really hasn't made that much difference which way you've gone. So that's another good reason to let people go back to work. And I think Ron DeSantis said it well, that not everybody can work by Zoom. And there are plenty of people who have suffered economically and mentally because they haven't been able to work.
That's so interesting. And for those governors, those municipalities that continue to have stricter lockdowns, if the facts bear out and you're saying they show that it's about the same if you don't have those really strict lockdowns, right. I wonder when they start to follow the science. Just a question.
Hopefully soon, because I don't want people in other states to suffer either.
Exactly. It affects us all, doesn't it? Fox is confirming Biden's new border policy has allowed more than 100 migrants released into the United States after testing positive for COVID-19. And the tests are done in Brownsville, Texas. An official there says the city does not have the authority to stop those migrants from traveling anywhere within the U.S. Some migrants have told border agents they are headed to New Jersey, North Carolina, Maryland, just to name a few places. Meanwhile, DHS reportedly is warning the Biden administration about an unprecedented surge of unaccompanied migrant children showing up on our southern border with Mexico. However, President Biden denies that there's even a crisis.
Did you receive a briefing about the border today?
Yes, I did.
What did you learn?
A lot.
Is there a crisis at the border, sir?
First of all, Attorney General Paxton, I want to just get your pushback on the crisis point of this. Again, just looking at what's actually happening.
Yeah, from day one when the president came out and said that he wasn't going to enforce immigration law, and of course we sued him, one of my biggest concerns was, what about this health status of the people coming across? We won't know it. If we do, we're not going to stop them. And I thought, even from his administration, that this was an important issue, and now suddenly it's not. We're going to just let people come into the country that may have COVID and potentially spread it back into my state and New Jersey and North Carolina, just like you discussed. It's a big issue.
Yeah, you know, I want to lean into that just a little bit, though, because the timing of this could not be more precarious for your state. You're trying to do something for Americans in the state of Texas, letting those businesses regenerate themselves, those that are even possibly coming back. We pray that they are. And all of the things, and letting that personal freedom. Now, there'll be some talk about mask wearing, but all of that at a time when we're letting all these people in and we can barely check them.
Yeah, I think it's irresponsible on the part of the president to let this happen. I mean, he knows, we all know that COVID is an issue, and we've tried to do our best to respond to it. We've had all kinds of restrictions. We just talked about this issue that we're loosening up restrictions, trying to get businesses back on their feet. and then we're just going to let more COVID come into our country. I don't know how you explain that other than to say that's absolutely irresponsible on the part of the president for letting this happen.
Real quickly before we move on, I mean, it is a choice, though. I mean, these are American citizens who are already here, the decisions that are made in Texas. These are people who are coming from foreign countries, and we're making decisions that don't correlate with them being American citizens because they're not.
You've nailed it on the head. It's absolutely true. First of all, they shouldn't be here anyway. They shouldn't be allowed to come across the border. They're not supposed to be. According to our injunction, the president still has to deport those people. Whether that's actually happening, we'll see as we go along. But just the narrative that the president's putting out that is seemingly inviting people to come, and the numbers are starting to show it, it creates not just the COVID risk, but also human trafficking and drugs and all kinds of crime issues that my state now has to deal with.
The ones we've been talking about all along. DHS reportedly projects a record-breaking 117,000 unaccompanied minors will try to cross into the United States this year, illegally. Last year, that number was just more than 33,000. That is an enormous jump. What's driving it?
I think it's the president, his administration, basically saying you can come here and you're going to be fine. We're not going to deport you. We've tried to stop that, but there's still the message out there. And so you're going to have people, because they believe that President Biden wants them here, they're going to come. And it's such an inconvenient and such a bad time for him to have done that because of the very issues we've just talked about.
Yeah, real quickly, I just thought of a question previously on what's happened in your state. If you start to see the numbers of COVID go up, whether it's from people crossing into your state, whatever the situation, does that change the idea about mask mandate and the rest?
You know what I'm hoping? I'm hoping we move beyond that individual business owners can decide. They can have mask mandates. Individuals can make decisions for themselves about what they want to do, their health status, their age, whether they have risk factors. And especially as the vaccine becomes more prevalent, I just think it's time for individual responsibility as opposed to government oversight.
Attorney General of the great state of Texas, Ken Paxton, with us today. Good to see you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.